Welcome back to the New England Ore Model Railway. In this video is the last for this series of the New England Ore Model Railway. But for now, in this video, I'll be reviewing the Hornby Railroad Schools class. This locomotive was purchased by me. I believe I purchased it about 2 years ago for a price of £75 at Lord and Butler. This should be a fun locomotive to review. Now it's time to take it out of this box and onto the turntable and show the various details this locomotive has to offer. Here we are at the turntable, and even if it is a Hornby Railroad model, which is a cheaper version of the Hornby fleet, the details are still beautifully applied, and there's still many loads of lashings of details out there on this model. And it is truly an enjoyable sight to behold. That olive green, the beautiful lining. Just looking at it from here is just a sight to behold. Now we'll go a little bit closer to view each individual detail of this locomotive. And here we are at the side of the locomotive. This one is known as Dover. Sadly, my camera isn't good enough to show off the nameplate, which has been beautifully made on this locomotive, but the other details on this locomotive stick out and are beautifully applied and done. As I said, the lining may not be as more in depth as it is on the more expensive versions of this locomotive. For those who want the more highly detailed version of this locomotive class, each part of the school's class throughout its existence has been fully detailed on more expensive Hornby models. So if you're more into the details, well, they are well worth looking into. But for those who are into the budget model railway, or who runs on a budget for their railway, this is just perfect. The only downside to this locomotive is it doesn't have any cab glass for the windows or plastic that would represent for the windows. That's the only downside to this locomotive, and not much detail picked out on the cab, but it's a railway road model at the end of the day. But what does stick out very much, so not even some expensive models have this. Look at this vessel. Metal. The safety valves. Each individual part is just beautifully made. And it just cries out quality. The tender, the crisp lining, the lettering, the numbering, everything just says perfect. The reason why the coal load is more higher than usual, because this tooling was originally for a tender drive model, with this one being loco drive, but the benefit of it being a former tender drive model is it has tender pickups. Name me a locomotive around about this price which has tender pickups brand new. I don't think there's many locomotives similar to this class, of which ain't from Hornby, which has tender pickups. We go on to the smoke box, the smoke deflectors. There is versions of this locomotive without smoke deflectors and a modified chimney for some of the later versions. The details are all there, beautifully applied. And we go over to the rear end of the loco. Again, it's just an enjoyable sight watching this locomotive going around. And there is the cab. It's all there, but it's not picked out. But if you really want it to be picked out, it and you have a steady hand, or you go to places like GLR Bespoke Services down Barry, they'll probably be happy to pick out the details in the cab for you and probably add some crew members, driver, fireman, just add a little bit more detail. Or if you're into your weathering, it would be an excellent candidate for that. Now we go on to the history of the schools class. Sorry about the camera not focusing much. The schools class was designed by Richard Maulsall, built between 1930 and 1935 with a total of 40 locomotives built. A special fact about this locomotive that with each locomotive leaving the factory, after that they went off to the actual schools where they were named after and had a special naming ceremony. So, as this one is called Dover, it had a special naming ceremony to celebrate it being named Dover before it entered service, which was an interesting fact. The school's class was a cut down version of Richard Maulston's Lord Nelson's, using a similar firebox from the King Arthur's. Because of that, they became the most powerful 440 locomotive ever built. They were primarily used as express passenger services between Tunbridge and Hastings on semi-fast services, which they were modified so they could work on the line with their high axle loading. They performed very well from the beginning, with modifications throughout the years, improving their performance. And they were very popular with the royal family, with some of them taking part in many royal train visits around the country. They continued on until 1961, where withdrawals began, with the last run being withdrawn in 1962 December. Only 3 of these locomotives are preserved, and one bit of an interesting fact that one of the preserved locomotives actually was used in America for nearly 20 years. I believe it was from the 1970s to the late 90s when the locomotive was brought back to the UK. They were so popular, even the Americans loved them. That's just a beautiful fact. Now, with history done, it's time to go down to the track and show how useful the school's class can be. Here it is, for Hornby Schools class Dover, ready to show us what it's made of. As it is the last running session for the series, I thought it would be an excellent idea to run a all 7 running session. As part of the Hornby Schools class Dover, she'll be running with these classic 7 green coaches. Joining her will be the Hornby Drummond 700 with a mineral train. As well as that, we got the Batman H2 Atlantic Beachy Head, and she'll be hauling some classic Pullman coaches. Something near enough of what the original Beachy Head ran with on its last service. But back to the schools class for now. Well, it's time to let these locomotives show us what they are made of. And there it is, another excellent and splendid running session. I would heavily recommend anyone who is interested in the school carts to buy this Hornby Railroad locomotive. It may lack in one or two little details, but all in all, it's a truly incredible model locomotive. Excellently priced, worthwhile, heavily would recommend anyone to buy. Even if you're not a fan of the Southern Railway, it's just a blast watching it going around the layout. Just like to say a big thank you to all who watched this video, especially to Kelly Ashford for her kind support towards these videos since our very beginning. I'd like to say a big thank you very much for that. And that concludes my review of the Hornby Railroad Schools Carts Dover. If you have any ideas for future videos, please leave them down in the comments because my brother do read and respond to all of them. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share and subscribe to the Lone Ranger Motoring channel. For now, it's time to say goodbye.